Gunfire crackles under a thick canopy of green. Infantry rushes through tangled vines as FA-18 jets howl southward, slicing the morning sky. Above them, thousands of American paratroopers are moments from dropping across 5 major capitals. Latin America is bracing for something no one ever believed would actually happen. This isn't a hypothetical anymore. This is an invasion, just offshore. 200 miles from Venezuela sits over 100,000 long tons of American military might, the USS Gerald R. Ford. It has lingered there for months under the guise of anti-cartel operations, but the truth is much bigger. Deep below Miami, at US Southcom headquarters, a commander speaks a single word. Execute. A word that will change a continent. Lights out across a continent. That word travels to Fort Meade, where US cyber units activate malware planted inside Latin America's power systems years before. In under 3 minutes, major nations go dark. São Paulo, Mexico City, Buenos Aires, Bogotá, Lima. Hospitals flicker, traffic locks in place, trains stop mid-tunnel, millions stare into pitch-black cities. Stuxnet into 2010 was precise. This is planetary amputation. And it's only the start. The GPS kill switch. At 4:15 a.m., America cuts its second invisible wire GPU. People think GPS is for Google Maps. But every power grid, banking network, and telecom system lives on those synced signals. Remove them, and infrastructure begins feeding on itself. Transformers trip. Backup generators desync. Emergency systems crash. Modern civilization is built on a clock. America just smashed the clock. The bombers arrive before dawn. 15 minutes later, the silent war becomes visible. Aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford, Super Hornets launch like clockwork, every 90 seconds, each one armed with 4 2,000 Labairos, their targets, 40 air defense sites across the hemisphere. Brazil's Sabre M60 radars evaporate first. Venezuela's expensive Russian S-300 batteries don't survive long enough to aim. One by one, decades of defense infrastructure becomes smoking holes. Sunrise is still an hour away. The 82nd Airborne begins its descent. By 4:40, the invasion turns airborne. 16,000 paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne thunder toward drop zones above Mexico City, Bogotá, Lima, Brasilia, and Buenos Aires. 5 capital cities. 5 simultaneous airborne assaults. Population tens of millions. This isn't Normandy. This is Normandy multiplied. Nobody is thinking about the occupation yet. Right now, it's about shock and speed. Marines hit the beaches. 15 minutes after the paratroopers drop, the oceans erupt. From the Pacific and Atlantic, Marines storm coastal cities: Acapulco, Cartagena, Callao, Santos. Amphibious vehicles roll off ships. Helicopters rake the beaches with suppressive fire, and container ports become battlegrounds. Every warehouse, every dock, every crane operator, instantly part of a war zone. Meanwhile, US Special Forces had already slipped inside countries weeks earlier. The heads of the snake. SEALs, Delta, Green Berets, all operating in the shadows. Their job? Eliminate leadership before dawn. In Caracas, a SEAL team storms the home of the military intelligence director. In Mexico, Delta breaks into the defense secretary's residence. In Brasilia, Brazil's top military strategist is removed before sunrise. It's the Bin Laden raid, but duplicated across 24 locations. Governments are decapitated before they know war has begun. The spirits strike from the clouds. 90 minutes in, the world's stealthiest aircraft enter the story. 5 B-2 bombers glide in from Missouri, unseen and unheard. Each carries 16 2,000 JDAMs. They target military HQs, communication centers, internet backbones, major bridges, railway hubs, fuel depots. By the time radars notice anything, the bombs are already falling. A continent blinks and finds half its infrastructure gone. The morning after the end of the world. By 6 a.m., Latin America is unrecognizable. 19 countries without power. GPS non-functional. Air defenses erased. 5 capitals crawling with foreign troops. High command everywhere, missing or dead. The US has executed a perfect first phase. But this is the easiest phase of the war. Because Latin America still has armies. And something far worse. The giants wake up. Brazil mobilizes over 30,000 soldiers. Colombia's jungle-hardened forces begin moving. Mexico's military lines up along the Rio Grande. None of them plan to surrender just because their lights went out. But the most dangerous fighters aren't soldiers at all. They're cartels. And they're watching. Mexico City ignites. At Chapultepec Park, 3,000 American paratroopers land cleanly. They advance toward the presidential palace, weapons ready. But nobody understands what's happening. No communication. When a Mexican army convoy rounds a corner and faces an American checkpoint, panic brews. Language barriers turn warnings into confusion. 3 seconds of misunderstanding. A single gunshot. 12 Mexican soldiers dead. The video hits X via a hidden Starlink connection. Americans massacre Mexican soldiers in Mexico City. The continent erupts. Bogota becomes a battlefield. Colombian troops guarding the defense ministry spot American parachutes falling like snow. They radio HQ. No answer. A tense standoff forms until an AC-130 gunship sees reinforcements approaching and blows them to pieces. Colombian soldiers inside the ministry watch their comrades die on camera. They open fire. The battle lasts 30 brutal minutes. The ministry falls, but so do 14 American paratroopers and dozens of Colombians. Bogota learns the truth. This isn't liberation. This is conquest. São Paulo's favelas explode in fury. In Parasopolis, confused whispers become rage. A 19-year-old PCC gang member approaches American soldiers asking what's happening. He doesn't raise his hands. He doesn't speak English. A nervous soldier fires. The kid collapses. Within seconds, PCC fighters unleash a storm of bullets. Residents scream, trapped. An RPG streaks from a rooftop. F-22 jets rake targets inside the city. When the shooting stops, 43 locals dead, 116 civilians. US soldiers killed. One death created dozens of insurgents. Acapulco becomes a trap. In Acapulco, cartel spotters had watched Marines land. At first, they assumed the US is supporting Mexico's government. Then intel spreads. America is attacking every government. A CJNG commander decides to strike. A Marine convoy gets ambushed. Lives burn. Marines die. Cartel fighters vanish into the hills. A Marine's gear is stolen and his body dumped under a cartel banner. This is what happens to invaders. The message spreads continent-wide. Cartels form the unthinkable. For the first time in history, rival cartels, Sinaloa, CJNG, Zetas, Gulf, Knights Templar, talk. The enemy is bigger than their rivalries. They agree to unite. Temporarily, yes, but powerfully. Hundreds of thousands of fighters. Endless cash. Explosives everywhere. Territory they know like home. The US has created the strongest insurgency the Western Hemisphere has ever seen, and it's only noon. The geopolitical dominoes fall. In Venezuela, an American strike wipes out an S-300 missile site. Hours later, Russia announces 4 Russian advisors were killed. Moscow vows to protect its interests. Nobody knows what that means, and that's terrifying. Meanwhile, in Peru, Marines storm the Chinese-funded port of Chancay. Instead of guards, they find 200 armed Chinese contractors. US troops can't attack them, but they can't leave them behind either. Peruvian forces arrive. Chaos erupts. China films everything. The first 24 hours end with a grim ledger. Day 1 casualties. 127 Americans dead. 331 wounded. 3,000 to 5,000 Latin American soldiers dead. Civilian toll unknown. Every commander reports the same thing. The occupation is mathematically impossible. Every bomb dropped has created 10 more fighters. Every death makes the insurgency swell. The next 24 hours will be worse. Collapse begins air. Day 2. Marines push deeper inland. The 1st Airborne drops into new cities. Drone strikes destroy cartel safe houses and create more insurgents. By the 48-hour mark, America holds 17 capitals and 40 major cities. They've won the conventional war, but the real war is starting. Refugees flee by the millions. Disease spreads. Food systems collapse. Mexico's northern border buckles with 100,000 crossings per day. The world is unraveling. The war turns into a forever inferno. A month in, the insurgency dominates. Daily ambushes. IEDs everywhere. Snipers on rooftops. Convoys destroyed. American troops dying 40-60 per week. Cartels now have Chinese weapons and Cuban intelligence support. The US drafts civilians for the first time in generations. Protests erupt nationwide. America slides into depression. Gas hits 12 per gallon. Europe abandons NATO. China steps into global leadership. The fire spreads far beyond Latin America. A superpower's lesson. 1 year later, 8,000 Americans dead, tens of thousands wounded. The Amazon burns uncontrollably. Cities are war zones by day, ghost towns by night. There is no victory condition, only survival. Historians later estimate it would take 30 to 50 years to pacify Latin America, if it's even possible. Because the US proved something terrifying. A superpower can destroy anything, but it cannot control everything. And that truth might be the most expensive lesson in American history. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to get more intense scenarios.